Hello, I'm Dave Wilson and this is a quick no-nonsense video showing how I installed the VanTrue S1 DashCam into my 2019 Skoda Octavia. I'll include some thoughts, tips and things to avoid along the way. I bought it from Amazon near the beginning of 2020 for £159.99 as a replacement for an X-based camera which started doing weird things. As I write this video, the S1 has been installed in my car for around 2 months. It's presented in a shrink-wrapped and sealed box which looks very nice. It's quite compact with very little wasted space inside. The front and rear cameras are entirely separate, presented in neatly cut out foam which does a good job of protecting the contents as they're being kicked around the back of a van on their way to you. Lift the foam out and the other bits you need are underneath. So the front camera is a very compact and discreet unit. It has 2 small sockets, one for the power and the other is for the input for the rear camera. Notice that the controls and LCD display are also here and the lens is mounted on a large disc. This is movable for pan and tilt and will help you get a good level image once the camera is in place. The rear camera has a single mini USB socket and the camera is only movable up and down. It's very light and as you'll see later, you do need to take care when mounting it. Worth noting that both cameras use an adhesive mount instead of suction cups. The full box content then is the main front camera, the separate rear camera, an instruction book, the cable for the rear camera, a cigarette lighter power cable, a USB to connect it to your computer, and shown here are the adhesive pads for the mounts. To show you the routes I used, this is a representation of the car. I'm sure routing would be similar in other makes and models. The fuse box I used for power is behind the passenger's glove box and the glove box has to be removed for access. Be careful when doing this because there's a little arm connected to a damper that has to be hooked off from the left side. I used the fuse for the rear wash wipe system because the circuit is switchable with the ignition. It's a full-size fuse and it's easily accessible. You can see here that I used a hard wire kit. It was just a generic one from Amazon, which means that I don't have to keep an unsightly cigarette lighter adapter in the center console. The earth wire was simply a fork terminal which I secured under a handy bolt. So I wanted the front camera to go just to the left of the rear view mirror. The rear camera ended up in the center of the rear window under the high level brake light. The power was run up the A-pillar from the fuse box and stuffed gently under the trim and roof headlining. I used a low route along the sill for the cable to the rear camera to avoid any possible interference with the side airbag systems fitted to modern cars. I found this cable to be very chunky, I'm guessing it's shielded, but its bulk is a bit of a pain to get into small nooks and crannies and it doesn't like being bent sharply. Something that can help you are some trim tools. A plastic lever and a tool to remove pop studs can be very helpful. I hate in-car trim as it's so easy to break and very rarely goes back on properly, but maybe that's just me. Because I don't like upsetting trim, I gently prise the trim back just enough to push the cable underneath. If you want to remove your own trim, then do so at your own risk, but here I used some gentle persuasion to get the cable out of sight. Expect some bruised fingers and watch for sharp edges, but be patient, take your time, and you'll get the job done just fine. The cable provided was nice and long. Here you can see where I pushed the excess cable down behind the C-pillar trim, where there was plenty of room. Unfortunately, what should have been a captive clip pinged off and I could hear it pinging down the inside frame of the car, never to be seen again. I did tell you I hated trim. Test fit the rear camera so you can see the length needed for the final run of cable and clearances you'll need for the plug, but do be careful, this is where it all went wrong. I was trying to bend the cable into position by manoeuvring the camera, but due to the chunky cable, it resisted and there was a sickening crack. Stress on the plug broke it, damaging the socket beyond repair. I had to get a new camera from the manufacturer. Top tip here, which a lot of people don't think about: position the cameras within the arc of the wipers. That means you don't end up with raindrops obscuring the view. Both cameras are pretty discreet and I don't think they're obvious at all. The rear camera is in the centre and although it can be seen in the mirror, it's not obstructive and now I hardly notice it at all. I'm really pleased with the front camera position, which is just to the left of the driver's mirror, so forward vision isn't affected and the controls are easy to reach. Make sure you allow a bit of space above the camera because to take it off the mount, it pushes upwards to release. Ensure you're happy with where the camera's going because once you take the backing off the adhesive pads and stick them onto the glass, you don't want to be relocating them. So this is the VanTrue S1. No music's going to play. I'll just let you listen to the audio. You just heard what the built-in audio is like. Sounds pretty good. But from now on, it's just road noise for ease of any copyright issues. I'm going to play the front camera first and then the rear camera. Now, as I have the S1 set to record in chunks of 3 minutes, which you can change if you like, I'll run the first section from the front camera followed by an unedited join so you can see how well it handles the jump from one file to another. Once I've done that, I'll switch to the rear camera. The changeover to the next chunk of video is coming up. Remember, this is not edited and I've simply stacked the clips one after the other. Well, as you saw, there was a tiny jump as the footage changed files, and it is noticeable, but to me it's fine. I don't know what other dashcams look like, so make your own mind up. Here's the rear camera footage I promised for a few seconds. You'll see the quality is still pretty good and comparable with the front camera. So my conclusion is that all things considered, I do prefer this VanTrue brand over the Nextbase, mainly because it doesn't have as many problems as what I experienced with the Nextbase, and the menus seem to be easier and less fiddly to navigate. The downside for me with this unit was the chunky nature of the cable you need to run to the back, and the fragile nature of the connector for the rear camera. But I must say that the Chinese manufacturer was very good and resolved the issue for me satisfactorily. Now, the S1 doesn't like the start-stop system in the car as it gets upset to the point where it thinks there's no power being supplied to it and it turns off. I have to turn the stop-start system off every time, which is annoying. I asked VanTrue support about this, but haven't got a solution. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give a like below. Goodbye.